What are the key things to watch for to know if I'm depressed? This week on Ask Dr. Saira, that's our question. This is a series where I answer questions about psychology, spirituality, relationships, personal development, and that's today's question coming from Alia. What key things do I need to watch for to know if I'm depressed? Great question. Um, my mom told me I shouldn't always say great question because, yeah, sure, every question is a great question. So I will say that is a question that makes me think. There are, I would say, 5 things in my own journey of depression and with the therapist that I've worked with. And just from a model of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, there's 5 things that you could watch for. So 1, exercise. 2, diet. 3rd is hygiene, social support, and sleep. So diet, exercise, social support, hygiene, and sleep in no particular order. So those are the 5 kind of markers or watch for areas if you think you might have depression. So let's go through those one at a time. So let's start with, I don't know, pick one, say sleep. When a person's depressed, they tend to sleep either a lot more than usual, or they have a really hard time falling and staying asleep. Often it's there's an exhaustion that comes with depression. So even in the day, there's this feeling of lethargic. You just don't have the energy to do much. And then at night, you sometimes tend to be up, or you have really vivid dreams, or it's just really intense trying to sleep. Many people I talk to who kind of are in the throes of depression will say, sleep, I love to sleep. I love to sleep because when I'm sleeping, I don't have to face my depression, my problems. But it becomes this vicious cycle, right? Where you sleep a lot through the day, and so then it's hard to sleep at night, and so you stay up later at night, which means you sleep in more in the day. If you start taking naps in the day, that's another indicator that things might be, something to watch for. Naps are great. We need naps. Our brain loves naps, but to a certain time, I think it's 45 minutes is a perfect time. 20-minute nap or a 45-minute nap, those are the good naps. Beyond that, you start affecting your nighttime sleep. So sleep, that's how you kind of know, watching your not only your sleep, but your energy level. So that's one. Number 2, hygiene. Often when a person's depressed, they have a hard time just doing the regular upkeep of this body. So it just feels like such an effort to take a shower or brush your hair or dress up in any particular way. So you might find if you're having a hard time with your daily routine hygiene, if you were a person who showers every day and you're up and going, and suddenly you're not showering for 3 or 4 days, and you don't, either you just forget all about it, or you just don't feel like you have the energy and it just didn't feel important to you. That's another thing that can be a bit of an indicator that you may be slipping. So sleep, hygiene, exercise. So physical movement, that's actually a protective factor against mental illness. But people who move more are less at risk or can cope better with their mental health challenges than people who aren't. And of course, when you're depressed, you don't want to move, right? You don't want to go for that walk. You don't want to do the 25 jumping jacks in your living room while you're waiting for the next thing to happen. You don't feel like it. And so again, these 5 areas, if you feel yourself slipping, you can actually start tweaking these areas. So if you feel yourself slipping, exercise is a great thing to bring back in so that your body's moving. Because when your body's moving, you get all sorts of happy hormones in your brain, and it helps. It helps mitigate some of the other effects of depression. So exercise. The 4th, diet, exercise. Oh, diet. So the thing about stress is when we're stressed, so that could be anxiety or depressed. Okay, so what is depression, first of all? So depression is, I'm talking here about the clinical diagnosed condition of depression, which is It feels like a numbness. It feels like a really low mood. You just don't feel engaged in your life anymore. Nothing's bringing you pleasure. Things are very difficult to do. It's hard to concentrate. You don't really want to be around people. So there's that. There's sadness. And there's another video I made about the difference between sadness and depression. So you can check that one out because there is a difference. But depression, when you have a lot of stress or when your brain is depressed, what the brain wants is some sugar and some fat and some salt. That's what'll give you that dopamine hit right away of like, oh, I feel so good when I eat this, fill in the blank, right? So if you start finding yourself craving foods that aren't really good for you and you notice that, you know that, that could be another indicator that you may be kind of going in that direction. If already you're somebody who eats that a lot, those types of food a lot, then it might be a consideration to cut back, because it supports your mental health to have a healthy diet, because all of those nutrients affect how your brain functions, right? It just does. I have not eaten any sugar or flour for 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. And no maple syrup, no honey, no nothing. And I found that when I changed my diet, it actually changed my energy levels. It changed my capacity to cope with my mental health. And so, I know you want to eat that tub of ice cream when you're down, but it's actually not going to help in the long run, especially if that's your go-to every time you feel down. So diet is another way that we can monitor our depression, but also a preventative thing that we can do to avoid slipping. And then finally, social support. Of course, as I mentioned, when you're depressed, you don't feel like being around anyone. You want to be alone. And so if you're finding yourself kind of like getting kind of distancing yourself from friends and family, just kind of wanting to be by yourself, finding it really tedious to interact with people, that can be another indicator that you need some intervention. And again, having social support that you can rely on is a great protective mechanism, because then if you have depression, you do have those low days, you have a network of people who know and who you can call on, or who will be calling on you and checking in on you. So those are some of the areas to watch for, to see if you're kind of going into another depressive episode, or if this might be your first. Now, one of the things I have to say for sure is that talk to your family doctor. If you've been feeling this way for more than 2 weeks, talk to your family doctor, and they'll give you a little checklist to do, and you just fill it out, and then they will kind of help you determine. And they can't really give you a diagnosis per se, but they can figure out if it's depression. And many people might be going through grief, especially right now. There might be so many other things that are going on that are not depression, but it helps to just meet with your family doc and rule it out. So if it's not depression. So those are my thoughts for how can I tell if I have depression. Stay tuned, send me your questions. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel so that I can keep making these videos. And I'll see you next time. Bye.